Hi, welcome to One Word a Day. I'm Sophie, your pilot into the universe of Chinese. Let's continue our exploration and unpacking three-character Chinese expressions in November. Okay, today we're going to talk about 大叔控. It's a very recent and I guess a Gen Z expression almost, because when I was in China, I never heard about that. But then it became a trend and even coined an expression for such subset of Gen Z girls, like who are young girls, but who are fancying this older ankle look. Okay, you will see. Okay, 大叔 is Chinese way to mean it's the generational gap over there is an uncle generation. So that means at least 10 years older than you. And then 大叔, da is, I guess, not only the age gap there, but also it shows a kind of a maturity because we call adult as 大人, like grown man is 大人, we use big. Even if it's just big, but linguistically compare with different things to mean maturity, actually. So 大叔 means kind of well-established middle-aged man who happen to be 叔, not married yet. So these young girls may have a chance. That's their fancy. Okay, so 大, almost like a starfish, stick figure, right? Visually, first impression. That's my first story as well. Like I feel if you pose yourself a starfish posture, that's the biggest, like your biggest wingspan, and you spread out, that's the biggest space you're going to occupy as a single person, right? But then I realized what that is after pairing it with 小, which means small in Chinese. 小 looks almost the same, have the exact 3 strokes. And this is 3-stroke character, meaning it's frequently used in Chinese that the language made it simple enough because big and small, they are commonly used concepts in our language, in everyday life. So this big and small, when I put it next to each other, I realized, okay, they are probably created together because both big and small are in relative terms. The unsaid part is it's bigger than some expectation in your mind that you use that as a benchmark, and smaller than something, right? So everybody have this unsaid standard in their mind. And when we are saying something is big, it's agreed upon that expectation of that's the norm you're using. And then this is bigger than what you expected to see. Therefore, you use the word big on that thing. So it's in relative terms, even if it sounds like absolute term. So my discovery, this is one of my major breakthroughs on my journey of language discovery, is this left and right structure. It looks like a human figure, right? But in this case, it could be just 2 strokes of things. Each stroke represents a thing. And then there is an exact copy of that thing. It's like a mirror image of that thing. So it initially comes like this, right? And then this horizontal, almost horizontal line saying act as a binder of the 2 parts combined into together. So that means it's bigger than its original, a double size. It has 2 parts connected. Now you have something bigger than the original. Small, on the other hand, have these 2 parts, and then we use a vertical line to make sure they're not bind together. They are separated. So by this cutting something in half, that means something is halved. It's smaller than the original. This is double, that's half. That's Chinese way to say it's bigger and smaller. And eventually in our everyday, we forget about this relative term and we just use it as if it's absolute. It's big. Okay. Okay. So big, in this case, can be age, can be maturity. And 叔, Chinese ancient practice actually have the ranking of brothers in a household because, okay, Chinese as a culture value boys more than girls, because boys can be farm hands, can be more like a productive unit. I mean, child labor, talk about child labor. So as farmhand family, you want to have birth as many boys as possible so that you have more free labor, so to speak, to support the household economy, right? That's understandable logic. And Shu is the number 3 oldest boy in, so Chinese have up to 4 brothers in a household. So everybody is a Bo, Zhong, Shu, Ji. Everyone have their own special character to mean. This is the oldest son, second oldest, the third oldest. So Shu is 3rd oldest. Now, when society have family structure changed, we only have one child policy. I mean, in my generation, it's one child policy. There's no way you can see 4 brothers in a household. But in my parents' generation, they still have like 4 or 5. That's the regular, that's the norm back then. Even back then, Chinese no longer adopt this complicated ranking system to mark the special age, like you're the oldest son, second oldest, third, fourth, no longer have that. And everybody, like my dad is the oldest son in a household, and everybody else, I will call them uncle. I will call them a shu. So we have 二叔, number 2 shu, 三叔, the number 3 oldest, and then 老叔, we use 老, means actually 老叔 is the youngest, but we pair this old shu. I don't know why. That's like a contradictory. Like 老叔 supposed to be the oldest one, but I use 老叔 as to address the youngest shu, which is the last supposedly spoiled boy of the household because it's the baby of the house. Then everybody just use shu. I guess Chinese as culture gotta simplify things somehow. So instead of having each unique Chinese character identify the rankings or the age sequence of the boys in your household, we just end up with shu. So shu is what we're left with. But if we want to dig a little bit deeper in this Bo, Zhong, Shu, Ji, so number 1, 2, 3, 4 boys in the household, Shu, it's kind of toward the young, right? The second youngest. And also, it's not the youngest. That make a huge difference. That means age-wise, it's still relatively young. But maturity-wise, it's way mature than the youngest boy in a household. See the nuance out there? It's like perfectly positioned. You're still young, but you're mature because you're not the youngest. So shu have this sha and the xia at the bottom. Oh, okay, so this is the small. I didn't see that. Okay, this is the small. See, as a language user, I kind of see the whole picture as an integrated one thing, unless I intentionally unpack it, and then I see different parts as separate parts. Otherwise, it's one unit to me. So I didn't realize actually when I was talking about the big, the small character is right there, hidden under the bottom of this character, bottom left. So that's what I'm talking about. A vertical line separate the two and it's smaller, or get something in a half. So that thing means it's smaller, right? And then here, the top means top. The top get, okay, the horizontal line for the top is kind of like a benchmark. That's the norm, the baseline. And when you have one vertical line placed on top of that and have another thing attached to it, that means both, okay, my theory again. The vertical line placed on top of that, that means it's in absolute terms. This thing is on top of this benchmark, right? Your baseline. That's a static term. But then added the second one, like attached to the vertical line, the second line, Oftentimes, this is not right in perfect horizontal. It has a little bit slant. So that shows the momentum of trending, going upward as well. So not only it's in this absolute term or static term of it's already positioned on top of that, but there is a trend. It is a secondary order of in the future is going upward, continuing going that upward as well. So that's my interpretation of this 3-stroke. Again, it's a commonly used Chinese character, so only 3 strokes will already depict almost like a mathematically showing you what it means to be up or on top of something. So now when you have up and small, that's my structure of, the perfect structure of the third born boy, because it's, if we divide the 4 boys into 2 groups, one is the older, the big kids, and one is smaller kids. The shu is the third born. It's regarded as a smaller kids, right? So it's a xiao. But between the smaller born 2 kids, the third and fourth born, the third born is on top, like it was born earlier. Therefore, it's like ranking wise, sequential wise, it's on top of the smaller one. So with shang means upper, and xiao means small. Upper small defines it's the third born in a family. Ta-da! I feel good to unpack it this way. It's very logical. And then 3-finger hand symbol. So I guess it starts with this whole thing means you're kind of picking up, I guess, as the third born son in a family, in a household. You still kind of regarded as a small boy in a household. Therefore, like an adult, this is the adult treatment of still need to pick up you sometimes. Maybe that's my guess. So in any case, it's a generic term of uncle. Like it's not your dad, but it's somebody, your dad's brother, but eventually extended into wider social domain. It's no longer blood relationship anymore. It could be any uncle, grown adult man that have in English speaking word, dad body, right? So it's dad body man, I guess, that young girls may fancy. I don't know. But 大叔 is I will show you a picture in the end, but it's that kind of look. It's a mature, well-established man who knows what he wants almost. And then that appeals to younger girl, Gen Z generation supposedly, or young millennials. Okay, 控 means control. Control have this 5-finger hand symbol. So now we have both 3-finger hand symbol, right hand specifically, and a 5-finger hand symbol with the tilted middle toward the right, because that's a differentiator to differentiate from the hair symbol. Both of them converge into this shape. And then which is hand, which is hair is confusing. So somebody added toward the right is hand, toward the left is the hair. Okay, again, that's a discovery. I have to put multiple icons next to each other. Aha, that's why. Okay, so this is 5-finger right tilting hand symbol. Okay, and then we have this big arch thing with a chimney on top. That means it's a private space as well. And with 2, almost like a ventilation or air channel. So that means you build a domestic space, but this domestic space gotta have good ventilation. I mean, people living inside cannot be suffocated, because I mean, we came from caveman age. I guess in caveman age, ventilation, like air through the tunnel, through the cave, sometimes may not be through the cave, right? So that means you kind of have to, before it's habitable, you have to make sure there are air flowing through the space, even if it's sheltered. It's rain-proof, it's rain-proof, but it's not air-proof. It cannot be airtight space for humans to exist, right? So that ventilation mark in there, that's a private space, but it got a ventilation, so it's habitable. Okay, at the bottom, 2 horizontal lines connected with a vertical line. That's the civil engineering tool back then to build a house that's perfectly perpendicular to the ground. The walls are perpendicular to the ground. That is what that tool is for, to make sure it's perpendicular. You can see 4 right corners over there. So that eventually, and because it's a simple enough look, used as a symbol to represent the whole profession or the whole, engineering or craftsmanship thing. All related, like a man-built, man-made thing. So the whole right side, almost like a man-made space that has ventilation, have shelter. So shelter from the weather, from the wind and the rain, but got ventilation, have air still ventilating through it. So that's the perfect space for humans to, live within. And this engineering goes that. So I would imagine in ancient times, house building probably is one of the most amazing endeavors because it's a bigger space. It's probably pretty complicated as well, engineering wise. So the architecture, the house building back then was probably the high-tech industry regarded in that time. So that requires a good sense of control because it's related to material science, related to mechanical structure, right? You have to make everything right to have the house standing and also have good ventilation. So that paired with the hand symbol, that means this is man involved with your handprint all over it, right? So together it means control. You have the good control of something. So big and co-control actually means you like something so much, you're almost like a controlled, like you are obsessed, right? You're very much fancy this category of man, which is big ankle, means mature man. It's still young, like the third born. It's almost a different generation, but young enough. And it's not the last born, so it's also big. That means it's mature enough man. So that's the 大叔控. And wait, I want to get to the next page. It died on me. Okay, just now I show you the picture of the 大叔控, the face, poster child, so to speak, of this category of man. So with beard and all that. So that's a type of love interest, I guess, for a generation of younger girls. Here we go. So this is, I translate it as 大叔 instead of like a big uncle, like older men. So men who are older, supposedly wiser and more mature than you, so who can kind of take care of you, but who is still relatable and young enough for you. I guess that's the sweet spot that younger, aspiring, girls just get into the dating market. That's what they are aspiring to relate with. That's 大叔控, right? Catching into the currency of thinking by one day with Sophie. See you another day.